Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Medical Coding Buddies Group, Coding with Kevin. I'm live today. This is a rare treat. I haven't done one of these in a long, long time. And today I've invited Doug Palmer to be my guest on this platform to talk about HCC Coding. So if you can hear me, okay, please go ahead and give me some thumbs up, likes, and please share this live throughout the medical coding groups throughout. So give me some thumbs up or make some comments. Let me know that you're hearing me okay, so we can get this show on the road. Doug, welcome to the platform, sir. How you doing?
Kevin, thank you for having me, and I'm doing terrific. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So, Doug, go ahead and introduce yourself to the group, and let the folks know who you are and what you're about, and your business accolades and all that good stuff.
Sure. Kevin, I am a three decades into my career here in the healthcare field. I started back in 1991, answering phone calls about past due medical bills. And I've looked at my career in three phases: learn, earn, and return. So about 10-year blocks there. So it's been about a decade learning about the revenue cycle and the HIM and coding field. 10 years I spent working in the field, and really, kind of advancing my roles. And I did a lot of travel coding. I had the opportunity to travel around the country to some of the biggest healthcare players in the industry, coast to coast, from Texas to Chicago, New York to California. And then for the past 10 years, I have tried to return, kind of give back, through various business ventures that I've done to provide training to people. And back in 2004, and we'll talk about it a little bit more during the presentation, but risk adjustment started in 2004. I got involved early on, and so I have developed quite a specialty in risk adjustment, and HCC as many people refer to it, and we'll talk more about that today. But 30 years in, still going strong. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Thank you for introducing yourself. So what Doug is going to do today is going to give a presentation on what he does, his platform, and how we can, make use of it, so to speak. And we also have a very exciting announcement for our Medical Coding Buddies team, and for those in the medical coding industry. For those who would like to take advantage of of what he does, we have a special announcement for you. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about how you can take advantage of his courses, and he's going to highlight all that good stuff. Doug, are we ready to roll? Let's go ahead and bring up that PowerPoint presentation so we can add.
And when you say bring it up, you don't see it on the screen because I have it. It said it was sharing. So do you not see it on?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Maybe we should put it in presentation modes. But if you would like to do it like that, that's fine too.
No, I do have it in presentation mode. That's it's taking up my entire screen. So let's. Do you see me changing the slides here?
Not at the moment. Go ahead and try it again, please.
I'm toggling back and forth between two slides. You don't see that changing?
No, I don't see the change, mate. Do you want me to use mine?
Yeah, let's go ahead and try that, because mine was in presentation mode and it said that I was sharing, and so probably best go back to yours there.
Okay, actually, it just came up. I'm just seeing that change. So go ahead.
Oh, okay.
All right, go ahead.
I'm just hoping there's not a lag. So. We have on the screen now. You should see Medical Coding Buddies Facebook and I Love Medical Coding, the hallmark of the Medical Coding Buddies Facebook group. And today we're going to talk about the title. Would you like to learn more about HCC coding? And I am Douglas Palmer. I'm the CEO of the American Association of Medical Coding Professionals. And I am advancing the slides, so I hope they are advancing with me. I hope you see that. Do you see that, Kevin?
Yes, we're now on your presenter slide, so go ahead.
We're on which slide?
Your presenter slide.
Okay. Well, I moved on to the next slide, so I think there may be a lag. So we may have to figure out what that lag is, so I can. So I'm not speaking about a slide that you can't see, because currently I have an image of Mr. Kevin and his post in his Facebook group, and I put this slide here because there was a response, and Kevin and I had talked about this. Somebody had said, doesn't HCC correspond with ICD-9? And so you don't see that slide, Kevin?
No. Let me go ahead and take over the presentation from the slides, so that way we don't have that log.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. We're going to get it together here. Go ahead, Doug. Oops. Yep, we got a flick.
Yeah, we got a strobe.
Yeah, we got a stroke. We got to have
disco day.
Yeah, we got to figure that out. Hold on 1 second. Wow. All right. You know what we can possibly do? I'm not sure why the devil is playing with us today, but here's what we're gonna have to put. Let's see if we try it this way. Okay, that's gonna have to work like that. So let's do it like that, and then we just advance throughout. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so let's go to. You can skip the next slide. The next slide is just who I am, and let's go to slide number 3. And so this is where I was talking about. Somebody had mentioned ICD-9, and I brought this up because it was a very good question. One of the things out there I find is a lot of well-intentioned people, providing misinformation sometimes. This person asked, doesn't this only have to do with ICD-9? No, that is not a fact. And another very common myth is it's only chronic conditions, and it is not only chronic conditions. And we will talk about that as we move forward. So we can go to the next slide. And one thing that in preparing for today, Kevin had mentioned people were interested in knowing about opportunities. And one specific thing he asked was, do you have to have a certification to do risk adjustment or HCC coding? And on this slide, this came from a group that I run. And, this person posts in my group fairly often. And you'll see that they will take HEMA or APC certified coders, no A's, okay? But they don't specify must have CRC. And there are a lot of organizations out there who will take, other credentials and not necessarily the CRC. Maybe once you get into risk adjustment coding, maybe you want to take a certification, but it's not a hard and fast prerequisite. There are companies out there, if you have experience coding, they will take you. So let's talk about the next slide. Let's talk about what risk adjustment is, because HCC coding is, it stands for hierarchical condition categories. And that is one model in this overarching umbrella called risk adjustment. And so let's talk about real quickly about what risk adjustment is. Based on health status, It adjusts some financial component of the cost of healthcare coverage. Okay, I'm going to beat this home here, point home here in a minute, but it has to do with healthcare coverage. What and how depends on the coverage and the risk adjustment model. So just an important note, risk adjustment is associated with the cost of providing healthcare benefits or insurance. It's not about claims processing or payment, which is the responsibility of the organization that provides the risk-adjusted coverage. And so we can move on. And risk adjustment does apply to all major payer categories: Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial. So, when you hear about HCC, Medicare and commercial models use HCC. There's many other models that the different Medicaid states use. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We can move on to the next slide. And so, as I mentioned, this is not about claims payment, okay? And so many people have this misconception. It has very little to do with claims payment, if nothing at all. So we can move to the next slide, and I just want you to repeat 3 times: risk adjustment is not related to the payment of claims. And we can move on after everybody's repeated that to themselves 3 times. It is about painting a complete and accurate clinical patient picture, okay? And I had planned on looking at a note, which is on your screen there. I was going to show it, but I don't know. I didn't send it to Kevin, so he won't be able to show it on his screen. But if you look, you should be able to see on this note, the patient came in for left ear pain, ST, and cough, okay? But if you read down, you'll see the patient is diabetic, okay? Now, left ear pain isn't going to risk adjust, okay? Cough is not going to risk adjust, but the patient is diabetic. They have diabetes, okay? And that does risk adjust. So, I bring this up because, coders in a medical office would assign, maybe an E&M, and they might assign the diagnosis of ear pain or otalgia or whatever, and cough, okay? But the key to being a very good technical risk adjustment or HCC coder is knowing your guidelines, your ICD-10 CM guidelines, okay? The official guidelines for coding and reporting. And so you're not just assigning a diagnosis code, that corresponds to the chief complaint. You should be assigning the diagnosis code for anything that is supported in the record, okay? And diabetes here is supported in the record. So that is one of the things that, a great percentage of documentation for risk adjustment and HCC comes out of outpatient medical offices. And honestly, the focus there is procedure codes. And so many of those coders are not trained to be good technical diagnosis coding coders. And so what was the big buzz about moving to ICD-10? Specificity and accuracy. And that is absolutely essential to achieving the goals of HCC or risk adjustment. So again, painting a complete and accurate picture. So we can move on to, I think you might have, yep, there you go. So just to reiterate, this is the cost of coverage to carriers. It's the cost carriers incur to provide health insurance or coverage benefits to individual insureds, okay? And then in commercial markets, it equalizes out the risk between carriers. And I'll explain that difference here in a moment. But it is based on something called predictive modeling. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick example of what predictive modeling is here. And so we can go to the next slide and we'll look at Chris and Jan. Chris is 18, just graduated high school, works as a server in a restaurant, okay? And Jan is 32. She's a mother of 2, works as a senior manager in an accounting firm. And let's go to the next slide to learn more about Jan and Chris. And they just went out and bought a brand new car. Each of them bought a brand new car, bought it the same day at the same dealership, paid the exact same price. course, they had different APRs than their own because Jan has a better credit history. So, but they bought the exact same car. Let's move on with our example to the next slide. They need to insure their new cars, right? So they call the same insurance company. They make that 15-minute call, if you will. And so let's move on to the next slide. And we will talk about what they were quoted. Chris was quoted $199 a month. Jan was quoted $99 a month for the same car, same everything, same. They live in the same zip code, everything. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide, and you can pause there for just a moment and move to the next. Why were they quoted such a different amount? Okay. And it comes down to predictive modeling. And so we can go to the next slide and the next. And so Chris is a young male, new driver. He's had a couple tickets, okay? He actually lives on the other side of town, okay? And it happens to be a different zip code from Jan, and that zip code has a higher statistical crime rate, etc. Jan, she's more mature. She has a more established driving record, better driving record, female, all these different things. So if you've ever shopped for auto insurance, you know that they look at all these factors and quote you, or you know that if you've ever had an accident, your rates went up, right? This is all predictive modeling. It's based on risk, and risk adjustment in HCC coding is no different. So we can move to the next slide. As I said, factors against Chris, the red flags: his age, his young age, his little scrapes of parking or moving violations, his zip code. I'll tell you a story. I lived in a town. I moved from one side of town to the other. It did have 2 zip codes, and I called to change my address with my insurance company, and my insurance rates went up. I hadn't had a ticket. I hadn't had an accident, but the zip code on the other side of town had a higher risk, according to the insurance company. So nothing changed except that I moved a mile, and my rates went up because of the zip code I moved from and to had different risk profiles. So again, Chris, his age, his accidental speeding ticket, his living on the wrong side of town, and the other things on the other side, which were not risk factors for Jan, explain the difference in what they paid for their auto insurance. Now, it's not different in health insurance. Risk, certain conditions, right? We saw diabetes. A healthy individual and a diabetic has to go for testing, has to have more visits per year, oftentimes requires some kind of medication, more risk of manifestations or acute problems cropping up, foot ulcers, etc. So there's more risk to a diabetic, and so that patient profile is more expensive to administer health benefits for. Okay, and we'll explain a little bit more about that, but it's all based on this concept of predictive modeling. So we can move to the next slide, and that's just a title slide. We're going to talk about the different risk adjustment models. Okay, and so there are everybody. We're here to talk about HCC, and we will, but there are other risk adjustment models. So Medicare uses a HCC model. The commercial HHS, Health and Human Services, the commercial under the ACA uses an HCC model, but they do differ. So the structure of the two are similar but distinctly different. Medicaid, there's 50 states right now, about 36, I believe, administer their Medicaid programs with a Medicaid managed care risk-adjusted system. And there's about a half a dozen different models that the Medicaid states use, okay? You see the CDPS is on the screen, diagnosis-based, CRG, UCSD, and they cover different things as well. There's structures that cover medical, and there's structures that cover prescription drugs. So there's a number of different models. So people say HCC coding. Well, that's like saying, a Ford Ram or Dodge Ram. I'm sorry. Well, that's a pickup truck, but it's a very specific pickup truck. Okay, so we can move to the next slide. So, as I said, risk adjustment applies to all three major payer categories. Okay, it does not apply to things such as no fault, workers' comp, etc., but it does apply to Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial. Okay, Medicare uses the CMS HCC model, again, hierarchical condition categories, and it also uses an RX HCC model, which is for prescription drug coverage. Okay. And we cover much more of that. I want to say this is a 1-hour presentation, or perhaps even a little less, because we're going to do questions at the end. And you can't learn this in an hour. It took me 3 hours. So, you know, a lot of this stuff we go much deeper into in our program. Okay, Medicaid. There's a number of different programs or models: CDPS, CRG, DXCG, ACGs, number of different models. CDPS is the most widely used, but there are a number of different models using Medicaid. And then commercial, under the ACA, or the Affordable Care Act, those marketplace plans use an HCC model, and that was referred to as HHS HCC model. Okay, and very similar in concept, Medicare and commercial, but again, they are dealing with two quite distinctly different populations. The commercial group deals with covered individuals from 0 in age to 65, and then the Medicare deals with 65 and over, with the exception of the outliers of those who are on disability and eligible for Medicare. Okay. So we can move to the next slide, and this is just a quick little snapshot of the different models. And one thing I want to point out here is in this tabular, this graphic here, the table, you'll see the top row is Medicare. Payment is from CMS to the MAO, or Medicare Advantage organization, and risk score is factored to the beneficiary, okay, down to the beneficiary level. Medicaid and commercial, okay, you'll see it says in that risk score factor level factored, that's they use the population risk score. So each individual in every model, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or commercial, has a risk score. But in the Medicare model, that risk score is pivotal right down to the individual. And in the Medicaid and commercial models, it is the average of the total population risk score that is factored into financial formulas. Okay, so the difference between some models is some are based on severity, others are based on chronic conditions only. Some are based on acute and chronic conditions. Some models provide compensation to the carriers for prescription drugs, and some do not. So there's a lot to learn about the different models, and we can move to the next slide. So again, just knowing what model you are working in, because as you know, people say HCC coding. Once you're in the, it's usually people on the outside who say HCC. Once you get into it, you tend to use the term risk adjustment, because you may, depending on where you are and who you're working for, whether you're working directly for a health plan or working for a vendor, you may be doing, commercial, you may be doing Medicare, you may be doing Medicaid. So, but some models factor to the individual level, some to the population level, some to the plan level, but the common denominator here is risk. And what is the risk? It's that predictive modeling. How much is it going to cost to cover a beneficiary adequately based on their health profile? So we can move to the next slide. And we got Ozzy and Harriet here who will help us explain this further. Okay. Ozzy and Harriet were on Medicare Part A and Part B. Okay. And moving to the next slide. They had options, including Medicare Part C or Medicare Advantage. This is a commercial managed care insurance authorized by Medicare, and they elected to be covered under this option. And we can move to the next slide. So now, Medicare Part A and Part B are no longer paying for their health claims. Now, the Medicare Advantage plan is paying their claims, okay? Medicare, CMS is paying this Medicare Part C plan a premium each month to cover Ozzy and Harriet. So we can move to the next slide. And so, as I said, they moved to Medicare is now paying a premium to cover Ozzy and Harriet, and Part A and Part B are no longer paying the claims. The Medicare Advantage plan is. It could be Aetna, could be United Health Group, could be Blue Cross Blue Shield. It is no longer your MAC, your Medicare Administrative Contractor, or CMS. So we can move to the next slide. So the health plan is now getting a premium, and the health plan uses that premium to pay for Ozzy and Harriet's healthcare services. This is where the claims are submitted to the health plan, and the health plan is now responsible for paying those claims. Okay, so that's where the claim payment lies. How do they pay the claims? Well, they're receiving a premium each month, just like your auto insurance. Maybe you've never filed a claim, but you've paid your auto insurance, right? In case you ever have a claim, okay? And, in case your claim is, $1,000 or $10,000. So you pay your premium. Paying your premium has nothing to do with when you file a claim, the activity that goes on there. So we can move on. The health plan does not receive the same premium for Ozzy as they do Harriet. And again, this has to do with predictive modeling, and this has to do with this thing called risk adjustment. That premium is going to be adjusted based on risk. And we can go to the next slide. Ozzy, he's rather healthy. He goes to his physician once a year for his annual wellness visit. He has a clean bill of health. He has no conditions to speak of. Well, Harriet is a bit of a different story, okay? Poor old Harriet, moving to the next slide. Harriet has diabetes, and she uses insulin. She has COPD, and she requires home oxygen. And she has AFib, requiring anticoagulant therapy with regular monitoring, okay? So as you can see, Harriet is costlier to cover for health expenses than Ozzy is, okay? So how does Medicare know how much to pay the health plan? Based on documentation from her medical providers that support her conditions. And how do we get that documentation? How we have coders to assign the codes for, completely and accurately based on what's in that documentation. And so we're not coding according to claims or anything else. We're looking at that documentation, and we are coding completely and accurately to paint a complete picture of each covered beneficiary. So CMS pays the health plan more for Harriet based on her health conditions. Okay, she has those health conditions which raise her risk. And so, as I said, this is adjusting the premium due to her risk, or risk adjustment. Okay, and HCC is a model of within the risk adjustment field. Okay, so Medicare Advantage risk adjustment methodology, it uses hierarchical condition categories. Okay, so let's dive in and take a look at what these are here. Okay, and we can move to the next. So there's 26 major disease groups or major categories. Okay, and you can see here, infection, there's 3 HCCs. Neoplasm, there's 5 HCCs. Diabetes, there's 3 HCCs. And I'm going to use diabetes as an example real quick. I'm going to use neoplasms and diabetes, okay? I'm going to start with diabetes, okay? You can have a diabetic who has no complications, doesn't have neuropathy, doesn't have CKD, doesn't have ophthalmological problems because they're diabetic, but they haven't had any manifestations. Okay, so that's one HCC in the diabetes category. Then there's two others in the diabetes category. That would be diabetes with acute manifestations or diabetes with chronic manifestations. And so if you look at a diabetic who doesn't have any manifestations and a diabetic who, say, has neuropathy and chronic kidney disease, well, then you could reasonably expect that the diabetic with those manifestations is going to be costlier to care for than the diabetic who doesn't have those. And of course, both those diabetics are more costly than somebody who doesn't have diabetes at all. So the hierarchy here is, diabetes. There's a category, major condition category of diabetes, and then there's a hierarchy within it, of severity, if you will. Neoplasms. Let's talk about neoplasms for a second. So neoplasms, somebody with prostate cancer, there's 5 HCCs in neoplasms, and somebody with prostate cancer would be on the lower end of the hierarchy compared to somebody with metastatic lung cancer. Okay, that would be at the higher end of the hierarchy. Okay, one other important note here is in these 25 disease groups where there are multiple, you'll see there's a couple that only have one, and there's really not a hierarchy there because there's only one. But any of these categories where you see that there's multiple HCCs, only one HCC will be counted, and that is the one with the most severe risk or the highest statistical weight. Okay, and again, that's something that is several modules to explain that in its entirety. So we can move to the next slide. So here we have an image of, and it may be hard to see a little bit on this screen. It'd be easier on full screen, but these are the individual HCCs. Okay, and there are 86 HCCs in the Medicare HCC structure. Okay, so again, 26 categories, and if you were to add up those HCCs that I put next to the categories, it would come out to 86. Okay, now an individual who was maybe a total train wreck health-wise could only have 26 HCCs because there's no provision for more than one condition account in one of these major categories. So even though there's 86 HCCs, the worst case scenario would be a patient having 26 HCCs. So we can go to the next slide, and we can just take a quick peek. This is just the continued list of the HCCs, and the following slide is also, it's broken down by the major category, and then the chronological list of the HCCs. So next slide. So we have major categories, then we have HCCs and their hierarchies, and then how do we know what qualifies for an HCC? Well, we have these things called mappings. Okay, and these are the individual diagnosis codes that will demonstrate whether a condition is an HCC or not. And so we can go to the next slide, which this is called a trumping table. This just says that HCC 8 in the neoplasms, we would not count HCC 9, 10, 11, or 12. That's 5 HCCs in neoplasms, but if the patient has a condition that qualifies for HCC 8, we are not going to count 9, 10, 11, or 12. If they don't have 8, but they have HCC 9, we would not count 10, 11, or 12 if they had a condition that qualified for those. So that just demonstrates this hierarchical structure. Okay, and so again, this breaks it down as I explained it before. HCC 8 is metastatic cancer and acute leukemia, and that would be the highest weight of neoplasm HCCs and HCC12, breast, prostate, and other cancers and tumors. It's not saying that breast, prostate, and other cancer and tumors aren't significant or aren't serious. It's just obviously metastatic and cancer and acute leukemia are more serious, are going to be more costly, are more severe. And again, the contribution that is made to the payer, the plan, to compensate for that is always at the highest one in a particular structure. And then the diabetes is pretty simple. An uncomplicated diabetic, the plan would get a risk-adjusted premium. But if they are a complicated diabetic, they're going to get a higher adjustment for that diabetic. And we can move to the next slide. So there's 4 parts to a risk score in the HCC model: demographics, condition categories, disease interactions, and count of payment conditions. Okay, so the demographics, if we go to the next slide, is plotting out by age, gender, original reason for entitlement, whether they're dual eligible, Medicare and Medicaid dual eligible or not, and whether they're institutionalized or not. Okay, and we know this about any individual. We know how old they are. We know how they became entitled to Medicare or Medicaid. We know what gender they are. And so this is a single number that's plugged in to the demographic. And this is our first look at weights. You see these numbers with decimals. Most I don't think there's and over in the institutional you have, and in the community full benefit dual aged category, and on that bottom 2 rows you'll see, or bottom 3 rows, you'll see a couple that start with a 1, but most of them are a weight of less than 1 for the demographics. Okay, and so that would be plugged into the first square, or the first component of the risk score formula. So we talked about Ozzy and Harriet, and Ozzy had no categories or no cats, and Harriet had 3 categories or 3 cats. Okay, and she fit into 3 distinct categories. Category 3, she diabetes. Category 18 for the lung for her COPD, and category 15 for heart for her AFib. Okay, now that's just background information, because we got to get more specific than that. So we'll go to the next screen. And so she has HCC 19. There's no mention of her having any diabetic complications. So she would have the weight of HCC 19, 0.105. Okay. If we go to the next slide, we have the next 2 conditions that she had, right? And HCC 96, specified heart arrhythmias, and that carries a weight of 0.268. And HCC 111, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and that carries a weight of 0.335. So if you remember that square, we had, the first square was demographics. That's going to be 1 number based on that grid of age and gender and other factors, and that single weight. The second square, we will add together all distinct HCCs. And when I say distinct, that's after vetting out similar or those in a hierarchy. So when we would only have 1 from neoplasms, or we would only, in Harriet's case, we have to figure out, is she an uncomplicated diabetic or a complicated diabetic? In this case, we know she's an uncomplicated diabetic, and we know which of the 3 she fits into from a hierarchy standpoint. So in the next box, or next part of the formula, she had 3 HCCs. So we're going to add together the 3 weights that represent those HCCs. Okay, so now we have a single demographic weight, and then we have 3 HCC weights to add into our formula. We can go to the next slide. Next slide, this describes something called disease interactions. And you can see here, immune disorders and cancer is an interaction, congestive heart failure and diabetes, congestive heart failure, COPD, congestive heart failure, renal. And so when certain combinations of diseases are present, that will bring us to that third box, and any interactions that qualify, there would be an additional weight. So we would get let's talk about the second line just for ease of recognition for most people. If the patient has diabetes and if the patient has congestive heart failure, we're going to get credit for the HCC for diabetes. We're going to get credit for the HCC for congestive heart failure. But because the two are representative of an interaction, there's going to be an additional weight, a bonus, if you will, for those two interactions. So let's move to the next slide. And the fourth part of the square, which we'll be looking at in a minute again, is a number of payment conditions. So if the patient, Harriet had 3 HCCs, right? Diabetes, COPD, and AFib, right? So she only had 3 HCCs, so she wouldn't qualify for an additional payment condition count weight. If she added a 4th HCC, all of a sudden there would be an extra weight for anything from 4 on. There would be an additional weight added into the risk score factoring based on the number of additional HCCs that are present. And we can go to the next slide. So now we're back to looking at this risk score calculation. So Ozzy has no conditions, okay? So the health plan is going to get a premium simply based on his demographic score because he has no HCCs, so that block is empty. If he has no HCCs, there's no disease interactions, right? So that block would be empty. And if you have no HCCs, we're not getting the 4 HCCs where that kicks in. So basically, Ozzy's risk score would be I just used 0.394 as I chose one of the reasonable 74 male, whatever. And so his risk score, and I'm using an estimated base payment of $900. So his risk score is 0.394 times 900. So the health plan would get $354.60 PMPM. That's per member per month. Okay. So it doesn't matter if Ozzy is hospitalized tomorrow because he fell off a ladder at home and the admission is $50,000. That's claims. That has nothing to do with this. Okay. His Medicare Advantage plan gets $354.60 per member per month, or $354.60 each month to cover him, and they are responsible for paying his bills, right? Just like, if you have insurance, you pay a premium each month, okay? And that premium is not reflective of, you don't get it back if you don't use it. And also if you get admitted to a hospital and your bill is $100,000, your premium is still the same. So we can move to the next slide and we'll take a look at Harriet's risk score calculation. Okay, so we put in a demographic representative of her, 0.386. Remember, she had 3 HCCs. We took those 3 HCC value weights and we put 0.105 plus 0.268 plus 0.335. As it stands, she has no disease interactions. And as I mentioned, she only has 3 HCCs. It's the additional weight kicks in at 4. So if we add 0.386, 0.105, 0.268, and 0.335, her risk score comes out to 1.094. And if we multiply that times that same base payment as Ozzy, it comes out to $984.60 per member per month. So the health plan is getting $984.60 to cover Harriet per month. Okay, so this is where risk adjusting the premium that the insurance carrier that is now paying the bills gets based on the risk of the individual. And that risk is calculated, is determined by the conditions that they have. So just moving to the next one, and I'm just gonna point out that I took Harriet and gave her an extra. If we can move to the next slide, yeah, that one. So we decided that she has a next. I think we added CHF. Okay, and so now she has 4 HCCs. So and CHF and diabetes are an interaction. So she's going to have an additional weight there. And now she's got 4 HCCs where payment condition count. So it completely changes her formula. Now she's at a 1.552 risk score, multiplying that by 900. Now the health plan is getting $1396.80 per month for covering Harriet. Okay. So I want to show you, this is kind of a pictorial of the data collected. Remember we talked about HCC coding is collecting a complete and creating a complete picture, okay, based on the patient's known conditions, okay? And so this graphically represents, the patient, diabetes, CHF, COPD, and this is all maintained by both the health plan and by CMS to calculate the risk score. And there's some other things that go into calculating risk score: normalization factor, okay, a fee for service adjuster, etc. And that is a little deeper. We go into that in the full program, but you understand that an HCC coder is responsible for pulling out at clinically supported diagnoses, okay, to paint an accurate and complete picture of the beneficiary, okay? And we move on to the next slide. This is just a different, different patient, different demographic, etc. You'll see V22, V23. There, every once in a while, Medicare does readjust maybe what conditions risk adjust and how many risk adjust and stuff like that. So occasionally they will update it and they'll transition from a V version, one version to another. And when they do that, they'll do a blended model. And we go into that in the program. So how much is a risk score of 1 worth? Okay. The information is right at the CMS website. It's called the rate book, and we can go to the next slide. And that information is public, downloadable, and we can figure out exactly what the rates are. And let's just show the next slide. It is done by county. Okay, so every single beneficiary, is calculated based on that demographic of where they live. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And we're just going to take a quick look at how this is done. You'll see here in Bethel, Alaska, the rate book, that multiplier where we were using 900 hours before. Well, in Bethel, Alaska, it's actually 1106.40 that risk score would be multiplied against. In Arroyo, Puerto Rico, it would be 433.56. So in Bethel, Alaska, it's slightly higher than that 900 that I used as an example. And in Arroyo, Puerto Rico, it's almost half of that 900 that I use as an example. So again, risk adjustment, it's adjusting this premium that the health plans are paid to cover beneficiaries in place of either Medicare or in place of Medicaid, or to equal out the risk in the commercial realm, okay? But many, many different factors go into it. I think this is nearly the last slide. Let's take a look at this. Quickly, I calculated member A risk score of 2.392, member B with a risk score of 6.023. And next slide, please. Yeah, that one. And member C with no reported risk score. Okay, and you can just take a look at this. And I did provide Kevin a handout that you can go back and look at this stuff. But or you could email me at info@AAOMCP, and I can send you the handout if you like. And this just shows you the difference if the person lived in Bethel County, Alaska, versus Arroyo County in Puerto Rico, and the same exact risk profile. There's about a $4,000 difference between the two, or a $1,300 difference in the second, example. So I was kind of speeding here at the end because I realized that we were coming up on an hour. This is next slide. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. The whole thing about HCCs is identifying documented conditions that are clinically supported in the record so that they can be used in a formula to calculate the premiums that an insurer receives to cover an individual. And of course, the payer is quite interested in that being accurate. If it's too low, they're going to be, going upside down covering that beneficiary. If they're too high, that's a problem too. So again, this is a very, very, very quick, summary of HCC coding and risk adjustment. This is the tip of the iceberg, much more below the surface. And some other things that you would learn in a full course is much more information about the different models, what the documentation requirements are. There's significant requirements as far as documentation, what can be used, what can't be used, places of service, services that can or cannot be used, systems and software for abstracting and collecting risk adjustment data, compliance, data and submission, audit and accuracy, roles and opportunity, and quality. And quality plays a role in risk adjustment as well. So these are some of the other competencies that would be learned in a full risk adjustment course. And so, Kevin, I hope this is helpful to your audience, and I thank Medical Coding Buddies for inviting me. I think you mentioned it. You may have some questions asked from some of your folks.
Yes. So, folks, if you have questions at this time, now's the time to pose them. And while you're getting your questions ready, I want to run a video that Doug sent to me. He's given us some good information today. And if you want to follow up with him, there's ways to reach out to him. But I want to run this video because he's giving us a special offer for everyone on the platform. And those you don't have to be a member of Medical Coding Buddies per se to accept this offer. You're watching this video, whether it be via YouTube or a different platform, please take an opportunity, listen to what is about to be said. So let me go ahead and run this video, Doug. Let me go ahead and add this to the platform. If it's going to play, does it play?
Looks like it is, yeah.
Okay.
So the American Association of Medical Coding Professionals provides a world-class membership platform with training and opportunity assistance, etc. It's a world-class experience. We have thousands of members that you can also enjoy what they enjoy, and that's just a world-class experience, training, services, etc. This is a quick look at our member portal, and this video is about 6 minutes long, so I'm not going to ask Kevin to play the whole 6 minutes, but you can see the different categories here. We have 160 courses right now, with more being added every day, and so you can learn just a number of different things. But it's not just courses. We have something called Recruiting in Reverse, where we help our members locate and identify opportunity. We have a help desk, 24/7 help desk, where you can submit a ticket for any question you have, coding related question. We have sample charts. This is code a chart here. And so, Kevin, I don't want to, because we're already past the hour, I don't want to take up all your time. If you're able to go to about maybe the 5-minute mark on that, or do you have to let it play?
I have to let it play. Yeah, I
Okay.
won't be able to fast forward on this.
If you don't mind, I'll continue to explain what's being shown. Then this is our CODA chart with sample documentation. Right now, there's about 100 pages of charts in there, but we have thousands of pages of charts that we're entering, and there will be the opportunity for you to check your coding skills with these charts, where you can do the different whether procedure or diagnosis codes, whatever, and so CODA chart is included with a membership to AAOMCP. We have a daily live Q&A. We have employment tips that we consistently put out on the site to help you with resumes, etc. We're the only organization that uses an actual EMR for revenue cycle and coding training. We have a EMR embedded right on our site that we utilize for practice and training. No other organization utilizes a live EMR to provide comprehensive training to their members. Okay, so that's the EMR there, and the resources that we have available. Here you're going to be looking at in a moment this is the help desk. The help desk, you go, you log in. I did it as guest here just because if I was logged in, it would have shown everybody's tickets, and I want to show those. But you would go and you would enter your name, your email, your cell phone number, and your question. And our staff goes right to work answering a question. Other organizations charge $25 per question. Okay. Our members, we answer your questions as part of your membership. So just as a sample here, we said critical care. Can you code critical care in a urgent care? So somebody would submit that ticket, they ask that question, and our staff would provide the answer. Wherever possible, we provide citations of official guidance. Not always possible. Sometimes the response is an opinion, and if it is, we identify it as our opinion is, but whenever possible, we try to provide the citation of any governing source. And so this person has submitted their ticket. They'll get an email with their ticket number for tracking, and our staff will go right to work providing an answer. Okay. Next year we have the recruiting in reverse. This is where members can, another organization asks you for your resume so they can help you look for a job. We do. Okay. And we make this database searchable by potential employers. It is anonymous. It's anonymized, so you do not have to include your name, or you can be general in your information. Or if you do, here's a blind resume you can upload, or if you want to put a public resume with your information in it, you may do that as well. That's completely up to you. But our staff goes out and pounds the pavement, helping you look for opportunities. That's included with membership. Okay, so that's called recruiting in reverse. So you can see we're not just training, we are a member service organization. And so clinical documentation improvement here, we're going to go down to, we have some CEUs provided to us by another organization that we use, just as an introductory thing. There's 15 of them there. Most people need more CEUs. Here's a mini course. Mini courses are always free, and this is on clinical documentation. And you're going to see here resources. We have provided profiles on dozens of different conditions, chronic kidney disease, and a helpful clinical documentation improvement overview for each of these dozens of common conditions that require CDI review. Okay. Our ICD-10 program, we have the ICD-10 CM database embedded right on our website. So you can go search for your ICD-10 codes right on the member platform. Okay, so you could search for code E11.9, which you would find, it would come up as diabetes, or you could search by condition, just like you were using an ICD-10 manual. Okay, so
1 second, Doug. Can you hear me?
okay.
Yeah. I'm getting some text messages. I have a study group that I run on weekdays, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I know folks are texting me, asking me if we're still doing it. Yes, we are. Once I'm done here, we will log into our Cisco WebEx meeting portal, and we will do our regular study sessions. So just hang on. I know some of you are watching.
I think we got about 90 seconds left on this, so just so you know.
Okay, go ahead. All right, yeah. So go ahead, Doug. Take it away.
Okay. We help people start their own businesses. We've helped a half a dozen people start their own businesses. We have a course on that as part of membership. Okay. So and then we have dozens and dozens of professional development modules, leadership, data management, dozens and dozens of additional professional development modules, again, all free to members. But we have the industry-leading risk adjustment program, which is what we were talking about here today. We have facilitated well over 6,000 professionals to success on the current risk adjustment certification exam. So the offer to you folks is you will receive the risk adjustment program and everything spelled out here for $79 if you wish, and you can visit AAOMCP.com/FB medical coding buddies. So FB dash medical coding dash medical dash coding dash buddies to take advantage of that offer.
And this is what it looks like, folks. When you get to the website, this is what it will look like. You just go ahead and bookmark that page. I'm going to add this to the chat as well. You can go ahead and copy that link from the chat and bookmark it, place it in your on your Google Chrome or whatever browser you're using. Just bookmark it so you can go back and look at it. That's from time to time. That offer is going to be there. Now, this is valid until June 11th. So Doug is giving us a special here until June 11th. So please go ahead and take opportunity of that. Buying. It's a good program. Doug has been around in the industry for a long time. He's somebody that I look up to in the field, and there's not many, and so Doug is one of them. I'm going to tell you that. If somebody asks me about who to go to for HCC Coding, I say Doug, and that's the first name that comes to my lips, because that is somebody who I know who has a proven track record in this industry. There is a question. There's one question in the feed here, Doug. Let me bring it up on screen.
Sure.
This is from Carletta. She asked, "Hi, Doug. I am RHIT certified. Would I be qualified to work in the HCC field?"
So, Carlita, qualified is in the eyes of the beholder. In the beginning of the presentation, I showed you that Facebook post where the recruiter said, "We will hire based on your resume." So, look, some will say you must have the CRC. Others will say, "Hey, if you're a CPC, you're already a seasoned coder." So the qualification is really based on the hiring decision maker and their hiring policies and criteria. I would say, if you're an RHIT, why aren't you? Why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you be qualified? You're not certified, but you certainly have qualifications, and every employment situation is a negotiation between the hiring decision maker and the candidate. So, but I would certainly put you on the inside of the circle as opposed to the outside of the circle based on your credential. So,
great, awesome.
And if I may, and I'm sorry, Kevin, if I may also again, we help people find positions. We help seasoned, experienced people find their next higher level position. We help people entering the field find their first opportunity. So that's a value added service that we found that people really got a lot out of. So if you want to learn it, we'll help you apply it. So
great. Any more questions, folks?
If you want to, Kevin, I know we ran out of time, so if you want to just type this in the chat, info@AAOMCP.com. If anybody has questions, they can send them there. They should just put in a subject line, Kevin or coding with Kevin, so that we know, But if anybody does have questions, please feel free.
Give me that again, please. Info at
AAOMCP.
Right.
.com. So if anybody does have questions that they didn't get a chance to ask today, they can send them to us, and we'll be happy to answer any that we can. So info@AAOMCP.com. If you didn't have a chance to ask a question today, or hey, there it is, perfect. info@AAOMCP.com. So if you didn't get to ask a question, or if you think of one later, you could always shoot us an email. We'll be happy to answer.
And you can also follow me, folks, on YouTube, youtube.com/coding with Kevin. Somebody asked, can we send our resume through the address?
Yeah, to us, is that directed to us? If so, we have an employment opportunity section on our website, so you could forward if you go to our website, you'll see it says opportunity, and there is a place to submit your resume there. So,
okay, all right. Is there any more questions for Doug? Okay, somebody commented, super helpful information. Thank you. I would like to do more of these, folks, for those who are watching and those who will be watching this later on. So if you have an idea for guests that we can invite on the platform, so you guys can be able to take opportunity to ask some questions, etc., please forward a name, and it will make the contact and make it work. So we're looking forward to doing more of these. Again, please utilize Doug's services. And if anybody is in need of the presentation that was done today, you can send me an email. Many of you already know my email address. If you don't, it's medicalcodingkevin@gmail.com. Very easy, medicalcodingkevin@gmail.com. Send me an email there, and I'll send you a copy of today's presentation. Somebody wrote, let's see, this says, I'm interested in this field, but unsure where to start.
So you could start by learning it, but through a course, such as ours, or if you want to start submitting your resume to open opportunities, you could do that. I would suggest, some formal training, but you could start answering, opportunity posts, and try your luck that way too.
Okay, I placed the address for where to sign up in the chat room for those who would like to take an opportunity of that. Let me see if I can quickly post it on the screen here. So for those who would like to stand up, there goes the address. It's also in the chat area, comment section. Go ahead and copy that and paste it in your browsers. Let's see, any more comments?
Kevin, will you pass along my apologies to your other group for holding them up this evening, and thank them? Thank them for their patience. I can get a little long-winded, and I will tell you this, Kevin. Sometime I want to hear you play that piano back there behind you. Are you a piano player? I want to hear you play that piano, man. So
at some point, right?
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions, folks? Okay. All right.
Everybody, thank you. Thank you for having me, Kevin. Thank you for having me. And I really appreciate it.
No problem, folks. So look out for more webinars, etc., on the platform going forward. We're going to be doing a lot more exciting stuff as the months goes on, the weeks goes on, and yeah. So kind of gearing up. Have a good steady effect going on in my home. I have a mixing board now. I have mics. I have lights, camera, action. They say, right, Doug? So I have it all now. And the only thing that's left for me to put in play is I will be taking live phone calls. I'm going to be doing just something different from what the other channels or the other informational channels for medical coding does. Live phone calls on the platform, etc. Those are the kind of things that I want to work in the mix going forward. So look out for those kind of things, activities. So great stuff that's going to be coming your way here in a couple of weeks. All right, folks. Any more questions? No, I don't see any. Just a bunch of thank yous. Thank you. It was a great information. Okay, you're welcome. And Doug, thank you, sir.
Kevin, thank you, sir.
We put this together at the last minute. I reached out to you on Friday evening, and you responded very quickly. And you said, yep. And it was a full go from there. And from there, I created.
Happy to do it, Kevin. Happy to do it.
Yeah. And so it was last minute planning, but we got it out. And I pretty sure a lot of folks is going to be watching this on replay. And so there you have probably get more traffic that way, and people will be reaching out to you, hopefully, here in the coming weeks. Thank you, folks. Have a good night. Enjoy.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye-bye.